Well, welcome back to another edition of CM World Chatter here in probably a top 2, maybe even top 1 city in the universe, I'd say. Any planet, anywhere. Cleveland, Ohio. This is Content Marketing World 2018. I am Jay Acunzo, author of the book Break the Wheel, and with me is Tamsen Webster. And we are here to talk about Tamsen's big idea called the Red Thread, which every brand, writer, speaker, everybody needs to know about this. But first, Tamsen is a keynote speaker, a speaker coach who once was the executive producer of TEDx Cambridge, and a former Weight Watchers leader, which I know you've learned a lot from in your marketing career, and a brilliant builder of big ideas. And Tamsen, I do want to start there because you say builder of ideas. Why are ideas in your mind things that are built, not found?
Well, every idea, in one sense or another, is a story. Like, it's the story of how we got there. So I think a lot of times we think about an idea, we think about that eureka moment where, like, we're in the bathtub or Newton and the apple. But what that moment is actually the moment where the last piece of the puzzle fits together. And so when we're trying to either find our own ideas or we're trying to explain them to other people, we have to rebuild them in other people's minds. So it's because every idea is a story, it's built on that story. Right. We have to go back and find that.
And the red thread, I love this concept. It's a framework for building your idea and making sure it's clear and focused, and you can continue to workshop it. And I know it comes from Greek mythology, is that right? Can you explain where the name comes from?
So the quick version is that the red thread was how Theseus found his way back out of the labyrinth after defeating the Minotaur. Theseus had a goal of saving the city of Athens. In order to do that, he needed to kill the Minotaur. But the Minotaur lived in this pitch black maze, which even the Minotaur couldn't get out of, which meant that the maze was just as important as the Minotaur.
Right.
And so he figured out he needed to bring a tool for each task. And so he brought, well, I should say, he didn't actually figure out what he needed to bring. A woman.
Of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Gave him a sword and a ball of red thread. So he took the sword to kill the Minotaur and the red thread to trace his path through the maze.
Right.
And since that's really what we're doing when we're trying to figure out what our own ideas are, where they came from, why they're right, it just felt like the just perfect thing to use to describe both the process and the effect that it has on the audience.
I love that. When we're creating a big idea, a new idea, a single piece of content with an idea, we have to get good at explaining it to other people, whether that's our team, our customers, our bosses to get the green light, or our clients, and we're so bad at getting back out of the maze. It's like we might have killed the Minotaur, we have this idea, but we can't explain how we got there or how we get out so that you get on board with it.
And that makes sense. It's a classic case of the curse of knowledge, where you forget what it's like not to know the thing.
Sure.
The thing is, once you've had an idea, and the best ideas completely change how you see the world, it's nearly impossible to remember what it was like not to see the world that way. And so it's really natural for those of us, once we figured out how do we slay our own individual monsters, you found your own process for being more creative, or your own process for developing a new content conversion app, or whatever it might be, you've found your way to kill the monster, and we've forgotten that we have to still get out of the maze to explain it to other people so that they can learn the same thing. And that's really what we have to do.
Where in the world of brands do you see a good red thread coming through?
Well, I think any great brand with a devoted following has a very, very strong red thread. I think one of the ones that I particularly like is Patagonia. Yeah. So I think it's all about what it's like and why we need to be outside. And so everything they're talking to, like they're solving for, what's the goal of how do we experience the outside? Right. And the problem is that a lot of times the way that we experience the outdoors actually makes it more difficult, not only on ourselves, but on the environment. In fact, to be outside actually hurts the place that we're trying to be. But Patagonia very clearly believes that there's no greater resource than the resource of the environment that's there, which is why they stand for everything they do. Not only the tools and the techniques and all the things and the equipment that you need to get outside, but for preserving those outside landscapes. And you can see it in everything they do, not just the products, but when they take a stand. Like, for instance, when against the releasing of certain landscapes from federal protection. Right.
So I want to, in the interest of a big theme weighing over this event, because of Andrew Davis's amazing keynote this morning, the curiosity gap and what holds attention. There are multiple pieces of the red thread. I'm going to give you guys the URL where you can go check out this stuff later, but let's tease the first one as we close. What is the first part of the red thread, and how do we find it?
The very first part of the red thread is what I call the audience goal.
The audience goal.
The audience
Not
goal.
your marketing goal, the
Not
audience
your goal.
That's
It's
key.
what is the audience already looking for that your thing, whatever it might be, will help them get.
Makes sense.
And it's got to be in their language, and it's got to be something that they would readily agree
Right.
that they are looking for right now. That's where you start.
So, start with the audience goal, but
That's
there are
right.
more pieces to the red thread, and I want you to head over to tamsenwebster.com and check out her great video series, publishing weekly, I believe,
It's weekly.
all about developing your ideas, aligning your brand, delivering a message that actually moves people to act, and it's all about those different pieces of the red thread and the various ways we can use them and improve them in our work. For Tamsen Webster, the big idea builder, not creator, not finder, builder, I am Jay Akunzo. This has been CM World Chatter.